guys, welcome back. Today we are going to paint this sunflower. Sunflowers you can do so many different ways, but this is how I did this one today, and I'm excited to paint it with you. I don't know if you guys like to do this, but I really like to often light a candle before we get started, and I've got mine lit today. It's just kind of a fun little ritual to get in the habit of before you start painting. We need some supplies. All right, we need a pencil. Any kind of regular pencil will do. This is the little kneaded eraser that I like to use because it doesn't leave shavings on the paper. We are going to need a watercolor brush. I like to use this size 10 Winsor & Newton round watercolor brush. It's great because it has tip of the brush and the belly of the brush, which holds the water, so we can get into tight spaces and fine details, but also we can use a lot of water when we need it because this holds so much. So kind of a great brush to use. Then this is, I've cut these into 3" by 3" squares, and this is 140-pound cold press Canson watercolor paper. You'll need some watercolor paints. You can use whatever you've got. I will link this set as well, but this is one I really like to use. The colors come off very easily, and to me, when I started with this, it made watercolor just easier. So I really like that one. Then you're gonna need water and either a towel or a paper towel, and that is it. So let's get started. Let me zoom in a little bit. We're gonna start with our sketching portion, and the most important thing I can tell you about that is to press lightly with your pencil, because when we sketch, we use both pencil and eraser, and you wanna be able to move things freely and not be locked into what you first did. So, okay, so here's our sunflower. You'll notice it starts with this circle in the center, and it has lots of petals on it. Lots and lots of them. They're tiny for this, I think, and they are pointed at one end, and they come in almost pointed, but come inward at the bottom end. We have some fatter, some skinnier, some overlapping others, and I think this type of thing is what gets us a little more towards like it looking realistic, versus if they all looked like this, also very beautiful. So just, you know, do what you like, but getting some of them like this is a little bit more like found in nature, you know? So we're gonna start. I don't have a quarter up here today, but I bet you this is just a little bit bigger than a quarter. And I'm even, you can see this, I'm putting like dots. That's gonna keep me centered in my circle, but just whatever, get a little circle on here. It does not need to be perfect, and in nature, they're not perfect either. Got a circle. And from here, I like to go like this. First of all of these petals need to be going towards the center of the flower. So if you were to think this is the center, right, there I'll need to go that way. So I like to sometimes do a petal up here and then another one down here. You know what, I can already tell. I think I want to make my circle bigger. So if you see at any point change it, I'm going to do that. I made it bigger first, got out my kneaded eraser. You can pinch it so it fits in spaces bigger, and I'll erase this part. And I think I'll just like it a little bit better. It's pretty good. And then I wanted to tell you something about this. See this? I could put my finger down here like this. That's about the height of these petals. It's pretty consistent, I'd say, all the way around. A little bit bigger and smaller, but you can use that as a guide if you want, which means mine can get a little bigger here even. And I do like this, then watch, turn, do another one over here, because what you're doing by sort of creating a cross is like, think about where these would intersect, right there. And you're gonna keep everything directed towards the center. I'm gonna erase that because we don't need it, but I like it because this gives me, like, now as I fill them in, it kind of keeps me, everything's going towards that center. And see how I sometimes skip spaces? I want to, because I want this one to go behind, right? Or I want some skinny, some fat, and it gives me the chance to kind of just work in chunks. So, I mean, I can keep going around, or I can do some over here. You're the boss of this, okay? I live in Michigan, and I'm planning on going to on a trip with my family. We leave in like 2 days for the UP, and I'm originally from the Chicago area, but I've only been to the UP one time when I was a teenager, and so we're gonna go explore. I'm gonna take a bunch of pictures. It's gonna be really fun. Okay, this is looking so wonky to me right now, so I'm just gonna keep filling them in, and then I will plan on getting my eraser out in a little bit and changing some and getting it where I like, because the sketch is like the foundation, okay? So this is where we're gonna take our time. So I really am just kind of putting them in, not worried about perfection. And once I get like this, like I've got a gap, oh great, I'm gonna turn one sideways and leave some space in between, which means I'm gonna erase, but just kind of play with it. When I was first painting, I would try to just get out my brush and do everything, and I thought that's what painters did. And it took me a while to realize that if I took more time on my sketch first and like even walk away, go get lunch, come back, look at your sketch, and then made sure I really liked it, that's when I was gonna really like my paintings. If you haven't noticed, I'm walking around them now and changing them. That's the details, like that's what's gonna get it where I like. This is probably gonna bug me because I think it's a little crooked on the paper, but it's okay. Look, I'll widen it up a little here while I'm here. But even that, like I couldn't change all that now while it's a pencil and eraser, but when I get to my watercolor paints, we're gonna kind of get what we get. There's not really an eraser for watercolor. A little one right here. And then now I'm like, I got a bunch on there. They're pretty good. I want to look, is there any that I really don't like? And if so, I'll adjust them. Otherwise, I'll leave them. I got, this one's weird. I got an extra line on here I don't need anymore. And there we go. So that's like pretty good. I could wobble this up if I want to, or I can just do that with my paintbrush later. That's up to you. But that's actually all that we need for our sketch. So we will take our pencil and eraser, move them out of the way. And now we're gonna work on mixing up our colors. We always make puddles ahead of time because watercolor is about timing. When you make your puddles up in advance, it means that you can play here and you don't have to waste your time creating over here. So we're gonna start with a light yellow. For me, it's gonna be this lemon yellow. It's the second one from the bottom left, but whatever yellow you have is great. And in watercolors, we get our color lighter by adding water. So right now I just cleaned all the pigment out of my brush. So I'm coming back with water and lightening up a little bit. So this looks good. I probably need a little bit more though. So we want a decent size because there's a lot of yellow petals here. And I think let's make some puddles for this part as well, and you can tell, let's look at it up close, that, excuse me, I actually have like 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors at least in here, and I think that's part of the fun. Part of it is trying to create shadow, so that's what these darker colors are doing, and then a medium, and then something brighter and lighter over here. So for me, that's going to be, let's see, some sort of a brown. I'm grabbing the 5th one down from the bottom right if you've got this set, and I only say that because I know people are buying this set because it is a good one. And I'm adding some water because I need it to be sort of like a medium color. I want this to be medium, this to be bright, that to be the darkest. So little puddle of orange here, and you're just playing with your colors. Pause this if you need to, don't be worrying about that. And I just darkened it up. Make sure you like it here. I'm even gonna end up grabbing some yellow, I bet, but I know I can do it from my paints too. So this dark color for me is a combo of really dark brown and black, but you can pick either one and that'll be good too. And see this, I do not need very much water because I know I'm gonna start painting with my medium color. Then I will add in the dark and the light to it. Okay, so those are smaller puddles. I'm gonna do something like this, but keep in mind, you are never locked into your puddles. You use from puddles and paints. And okay, I'm excited about this one. Let's zoom in a little. And I'm gonna start painting with the yellow first. So cleaning out my brush, drying it on my towel, and when I dry it on my towel, here, let me see if I can show you that. See, I have this bucket and a towel, but when I dry it, I'm gonna clean it like this, dry it, and then I go. So that's all I'm talking about when we say drying. Okay, we're back at it. We're gonna start with that yellow and get those petals done. So I'm taking from here and I'm gonna just start getting it in there. You'll notice that with watercolor, you can really worry about getting into all of your, you know, really perfect into all the edges or not. And it can be great either way. I'm gonna turn my paper as I work, but also the brush is kind of made for these. If you press and then like it's lighter with pressure, a little more pressure in the center and then lift. Lighter pressure, lean into that belly as you get into it. And this is kind of a good practice for just pressure on your brush. I'm going around, I'm touching them together. I don't actually want to see like 37 different shapes. I kind of want this to look like, I want it to look like a bunch of different petals, but the paint I want to be sort of connected, in most spaces at least. Okay, I painted this kind of quickly, maybe too quickly for you, I get that. But by having all of these wet at the same time, then I can take my brush, go into a darker yellow of some sort, or maybe just more of the yellow if that's what you have. And I can now touch it to the base of these while they're all wet. I know they're wet because I see the light reflecting on them. And see, I get this really cool kind of effect. I'm gonna clean my brush out now. I'm gonna let it dry more because mine's like pretty wet before I do anything else. So if you have a hairdryer at home, that's great. If you have a heat gun, like a little craft heat gun, that's good. Otherwise, you can seriously just work on something else for a minute while this dries and come back. But if we were to just continue working right now while all of this is wet and we got into this, this will bleed into everything else, and that's the kind of stuff that makes you hate watercolor. So we're gonna let this dry. So now that all of this is dry, and I can tell it's dry because when I lift it, I don't see the light reflecting. Oh, okay, tiny bit right there, but everything else I don't, and I'm gonna work in the center, so that spot's okay. And so now I'm going to take that brown that I've created and get that on my brush, and I'm gonna fill in the whole circle. And you know, you can worry about the edges or not. It just doesn't matter too much. I'm gonna fill this in. I want it a little darker, I'm noticing right away, so I'm adding more paint right into that puddle. I cleaned out my brush because it got almost too dark. Okay, getting it the color I want, and I'm gonna real quick go over the entire thing again so that it's nice and wet. Whole thing's wet. I'm not adding any water to my brush now. I even tapped it on my towel because it felt like there was maybe too much. And here's that black brown. I'm going to start touching it around here in sort of like a smile shape, but it's off to the bottom right. And I'm gonna mess up the edges a little bit because I don't want them to be so perfect, kind of like seeds, you know. Let me get a little closer for you. And then I'll do the same thing with that paint for the top right here. To me, that's just a way that I want to show some roundness. You can do it another way if you want, that's fine. So this is all wet, so I'm on a time crunch a little bit, okay? I'm gonna get a little bit more paint here, another color, and you can add in this way. This is a dark orange. Let's see. And I'm gonna add some right here, and before it dries, this is tricky. We maybe should have already even done it. I'm gonna add some right here. Let's see. I'm getting it quick on my brush right here because I sort of need the water to move out of the way so that the water can absorb that. If that didn't show enough, I cleaned my brush and dried it. I could lift this a little bit and get some lightness there, and then kind of right away get into it with this light color. Okay, but it's tricky. With wet on wet, you really, with everything in watercolor, you go light to dark, but you can sometimes do that, and if it's still wet, the water will push outwards. And actually look at the markings I'm starting to get. I'm gonna zoom in here. Can you see that? It's starting to, the light color is going to now dry over the darker color, and it'll be awesome. So, okay, so we've got this done. We need that to dry again, but this time I think we can keep working. We're going to get, I'm gonna make a teeny tiny puddle of a dark yellow. I have got a couple options that I can do. The third one up from the bottom, or this is a yellow ochre. It's sort of like a mustard color. I could do either or a combo of the both, but you use what you have. And do you see how tiny this puddle is? Tiny and pretty concentrated with paint. Then I'll get in, and I just want, do you see how I've divided up these petals a little bit with that darker color? So some lines right on the center of them would be fine, right? That's a good way to start. These little, and I'm starting at the center and moving out, because usually when we lift up on our brush, that's when we're gonna get the tiniest line. You're lifting as you go away. Press and lift, okay? And I'm getting this on these centers. Already cute. I also want to sort of distinguish my petals from each other a little. You can tell in this one I went in with a darker color. I added brown into it because I just wanted to see more definition. And you can do that if you want, but you don't need to. So pick a color that works good for you. If you start with a lighter color, you can always go darker. And sort of like under the bottom of them maybe, or to the side, I'm going to just add this little bit that kind of will, it's like a little shadow next to it, but it's going to distinguish them just a little bit. This is where you just play and see what you like, though. If you don't like this, don't do this part. I'm going to clean my brush now, and I wiped it on my towel, and any spots like this where I'm like, ugh, that's too harsh, I can take that brush and just kind of add a little water, and it's going to fade out those harsher lines. Because when you clean your brush and you dry it just twice, once, twice, you know there's a little bit of water in here, just a little. Okay, I'm totally digging this. I love it. Although I wish I had crossed some petals over like I did here. I love that one. And this is still drying, and I really do want to make sure it's dry before I do this next part. But what will happen if I put these seeds on top and this is not dry is that they'll just be a little bit fuzzy, and I think I can handle that in this situation. So, cleaned my brush, dried my brush. I'm going to put the tip of my brush in my water, and I'm going to get either a black or a brown or a combo of the both. And this is a very tiny puddle, teeny tiny, okay? Then some little polka dots. I like to do them, okay, I'm like holding my paper flat, and I'll zoom out so you can see that I'm putting my pinky down, a little support pinky, okay? And you can go like tiny little, touching it as dots. I like a little somewhat rounded line to start. Then I'll split the difference between the two and do another line in between. See, it's between the dots above it. And I like this cutesy little orderly look to it, but you can totally go 100% random on this. You could do a bunch of dots over here where it's in the shadow more. All right, I'm gonna do it. Fine, I'll show you. And that's gonna sort of reinforce the shadow a little bit. I could do a couple here, but I don't wanna ever color my cool watercolor markings. Look at how that dried, I love it. So I never wanna do a bunch of dots at the risk of losing that beautiful shape. We're done, that was fast. I love this one, and you could do a beautiful bouquet of these and change the shapes of these and do them all kinds of ways. Experiment with different colors you like in the center, and I'd love to see them. If you want to share them on my Facebook page, Audrey Shantz Art, you can share them there. I just kind of love to see what you guys are doing. Yeah, so do that if you want. There should be a little like bell. You can like ring the bell or subscribe and ring the bell, I think, to see when I post more videos, which currently are each Wednesday. And then for Inktober, I'll be doing one every day. So that should be really exciting. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys.